Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of From the Desk of Jamison Greenwood, produced by NJB Enterprises and broadcasting from the Kactus Radio in Phoenix, Arizona. Tonight we'll kick off the holiday season by a story about the frustrations that many of us go through when decorating the house for Christmas. Lots more to come as we go through the season, poems, quizzes, and holiday cheer all around. Unless you're a curmudgeon who can't stand happiness. So once again, we begin with the answers to last week's quiz, and the categories, not only so you can remember them, but so I can, were sports, colonial America, and grammar. And the answer to the first question, who set the PGA Tour record for making consecutive cuts, was D, Tiger Woods. Woods is also famous for being the youngest golfer to reach 50 victories by the time he was 30 years old. Now the answer to the second question, who was the founder of Providence, which later became Providence, Rhode Island, was D, Roger Williams. Roger Williams was expelled from Puritan society in Massachusetts after he was found guilty of spreading new and dangerous opinions, and founded Providence, which later joined another settlement founded by fellow Puritan dissident Anne Hutchinson to create Rhode Island. On the last question, which of these sentences exhibits a dangling modifier? The answer was D. We like to watch horses, especially my mother. This sentence implies that your mother is a horse, which is something that if you aren't a horse, you probably don't want to do. All of the answers to this week started with D. D, D, D. And you can interpret that acronym any way you want. It's one of my Christmas gifts to you. And here's the next one. Another new story. 'Twas a few weeks till Christmas on burnt sienna lane, and the yards were aglow with light-up candy canes. Dang it, that doesn't fit within the meter. Well, anyhow, when I was a kid living on burnt sienna, we always would decorate our house with a bright assortment of lights. There were some things that were constant. We always had light-up statues of Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus in the gravel in front of the living room's picture window where our tree was. We had a Christmas wreath with little presents, apples, and drums, and a big red bow hanging on the front door, and a pot of poinsettias were by the front door beneath the porch light. But every Christmas season we had a specific set of routines. On the first Friday evening after December 1st, we would put up our inside decorations. We would get our artificial tree, we weren't one of those families that went to a lot for a real one, along with our ornaments and other items out of the cabinets in my parents' closet, and put up the tree and decorate the tree and the other parts of the living room and the kitchen. Now before we started, I would always set up my portable record player in the living room and we would listen to the Firestone Christmas album that my mother grew up with, along with other Christmas records such as Ray Conniff, Lawrence Welk, and Andrei Kostelanetz. Then, the first Saturday afternoon in December, we would gather up all of our outdoor decorations and put them up. The first few years we lived at Burnt Sienna, we had the simple decorations that I described earlier, but one year we happened to acquire an unexpected assortment of them. My father was the manager of the reptile house at the Avondale Zoo, and every year they would decorate the enclosures and other zoo buildings with various Christmas lights, ornaments, holly, and other items to rival the more popular zoo lights at the Phoenix Zoo. Now, one year, the head of the zoo, Mr. McGillicuddy, and the board of the zoo decided that instead of spending their budget surplus on improvements to the enclosures, it would be a better investment to purchase new Christmas decorations. Now, as a result, the reptile house received some new items, and my father was allowed to take home some of the old ones. So, my dad, of course, thought that this was an excellent deal, but my mom wasn't so sure. She feared the creepy crawlies invisible to the naked eye that may have accumulated on the decorations over their years at the Avondale Zoo, and was deaf to my father's pleas to let him place some of the light-up strings of faux pine needles on the railings of our staircase. However, she did agree that he could put up some of the decorations outside, as long as he got rid of the ones we didn't use. Among some of the items were a dozen or so strings of white lights with plastic encasements around 4 or 5 of them each to represent icicles. My father estimated that between them it would be enough to put along the eaves above the garage on the first floor and my parents' bedroom on the second floor. After my parents went through most of these decorations for close to 10 minutes and my mother tossed most of them in the garbage, the only other item that was rescued was a beautiful pair of red Christmas bells with a bow and faux pine branch holding them together. Once these had been selected, we began to decorate in earnest. Macy, my sister, and I handled Mary, Joseph, and Jesus, and I helped her position them so that Christ was in the middle and so that the power cords could be wired as needed. Meanwhile, Mom and Dad were beginning to handle the outdoor decorations, their first goal to get the aforementioned bells hung up. There was a small round vent hole which went into the attic above my parents' bedroom window, and my father theorized that a twist tie wrapped around a slat in the vent would hold it up. However, while I was putting a strip of red duct tape across a sidewalk crack to cover the power cords to the nativity scene, I heard a thump on the ground along with Daddy exclaiming, "Dagnabbit!" He, of course, had dropped the plastic bells in the process of trying to thread the twist tie. "Jimmy, sweetie, can you come here, please?" called Mom. I walked over. "Yes, Mom?" "Can you take these bells, run upstairs to my bedroom, open the window, and hand them to Dad, please?" "Sure," I answered. I entered the front door and ran up our L-shaped staircase until I reached the landing on the second floor. I turned to my parents' bedroom on the left and walked from the door past their bed to the front window, opened the shutters, and opened the window itself. Unfortunately, I first had to unscrew a security bolt on the lower track, and once I slid open the window, I realized that the insect screen was still on, and I had to try for about 2 minutes to ram it out. Once it did get rammed out, it of course slid off the roof and down into the driveway, but it didn't strike anybody, so I handed Dad the bells to try to hook up. He lifted it up towards the vent, but it fell out of his hands once again. I had to come back down, pick up the bells, and start the cycle again. Then he mistied the twist tie, and the cycle began another time. It began to get almost like a rotary dial telephone, spinning, waiting for it to go back, spinning it, waiting for it to go back, downstairs, upstairs, down again, bells dropping, Dad grunting, him and Mom calling me back down. After about half a dozen of these cycles, Dad finally got that thing secured, but that was the least of our troubles. And our trouble right now is that we have to take a quick break so that Tom Sawyer decaffeinated coffee and whatever pharmaceutical is paying for this episode can get their 2 cents in. You are listening to From the Desk of Jamison Greenwood on KCTS.
Frosty the Snowman was a jolly happy soul, with a corncob pipe and a button nose and 2 eyes made out of coal.
If you had chickenpox, the shingles virus is already inside you. 1 in 3 people will get shingles in their lifetime. Don't leave yourself unprotected. Ask your doctor about the new hailstorm shingles prevention vaccine. It's neither covered by insurance nor FDA approved, but it's guaranteed to kill shingles like hailstorms kill your roof. Hailstorm is not for everyone, like people with liver disease and women who are nursing, pregnant, or may become pregnant. Simple blood tests will check for liver problems. Ask your doctor if the hailstorm vaccine is right for you. And if he says no, hold him hostage with threat of lethal force until he says yes.
We'll be back with From the Desk of Jamison Greenwood right after this.